Hello, my name is Ridwanullah Ayodeji. Good day to everyone. Making this presentation on behalf of IYMER Group. Today I want to take us through an opportunity that sits at the intersection of two national interests: Nigeria's urgent need to build shipbuilding capacity and Turkey's need to find new markets for a shipbuilding industry that is already among the most capable in the world but is currently underperforming commercially. The presentation is organized into three parts. First, the Nigerian market and why the legal and regulatory environment makes now the right time to act. Second, what Turkey brings to the table and the evidence that the relationship already works. And third is a concrete strategy identifying the right Nigerian yards to partner with and a 5-year roadmap on the outcomes we believe this partnership can deliver. So the opportunity at a glance. Firstly, we have the Nigerian shipbuilding market as of 2024 is valued at about $311 million, which is a lot, and it is projected to grow at a rate of 4% per year. And then we have the Turkish shipbuilding industry, which is valued at 1.91 billion, which shows us that they really have the capacity to elevate the Nigerian market. And then also the evidence of the numerous shipyards, which is 78 that they have, is also evidence of this. And the 100% cabotage law, which says that all ships being used in the Nigerian coast must be Nigerian built, flagged, and crewed. So this shows that Nigeria really needs a lot of shipyards. So the global industry is one that is also growing, with the global value of this market increasing from 259 billion in 2026 to 334 billion by 2030, which is a 6.5% increase per year. An important detail is that Africa is a major part of this, and it's projected to be where the most growth will happen. And also, we know that the major players in this environment is like South Korea and China. They mostly focus on container ships, LNG carriers, while they tend to ignore support vessels like patrol craft and ferries. And this is where Turkey excels. This will give us the opportunity to become dominant in this part of the market. So now we come to Nigeria's maritime demand. So as we said before, the Cabotage Act of 2003 is the foundation, and it reserves all coastal and inland commercial shipping for vessels that meet Nigerian ownership, cruise ship, and flagship. It has been on the books for over 20 years, but it is really just being implemented now. We also have NIMASA, the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. They enforce the cabotage compliance and manage the vessel's financing mechanism. And then we also have the Cabotage Vessel Financing Fund. It's perhaps the most important recent development after years of delay. The digital portal has been launched in January of this year. Over 60 applications have already been received. As of April 2026, the presidential approval has been given and the funding is active. And lastly, we have the NCDMB. The local content rules extend the same logic into all oil and gas maritime services. So now we have the capacity gap. So if the legal demand is clear, why has the market not been filled yet? Answer is a persistent and specific capacity gap, and this gap is the commercial opening for a Turkish partner. Nigerian shipyards, with a handful of exceptions, do not have the technology or infrastructure to build complex modern vessels, particularly those needed for deep water oil and gas operations. Despite 2 decades of cabotage law, the fleet of Nigerian-owned and Nigerian-built vessels remains well below what Nigerian maritime commerce requires. Foreign operators continue to dominate through waivers. Regulatory enforcement is inconsistent because NIMASA and other agencies have overlapping mandates with no single point of accountability. Cabotage waivers, which allow foreign vessels to operate temporarily, have been overused, effectively undermining the very law they were meant to complement. The key message on the slide is that the gap is not a reason to avoid Nigeria, it is a reason to enter it. A Turkish company that brings technology, training, and a joint capacity is not competing with local content law. It is the mechanism by which Nigeria finally meets it. Now let's take a look at what Turkey actually brings. The chart on the left shows something striking. Turkey and Nigeria have comparable shipbuilding market sizes as of 2024, approximately 255 million and 312 million respectively, but the trajectories are completely different. Nigeria's market is growing and undersupplied, while Turkey's export market is actually declining, down by 1.4% in 2024, with a much sharper fall in 2025. That means Turkish yards have spare capacity, experienced engineers with time on their hands, and financial incentive to diversify away from saturated European order books. 54% of their shipyards are clustered in Tuzla and Yalova, creating a dense industrial ecosystem with shared supplies, trained workforce, and classification enterprise. Turkey also holds up a top 5 global ranking for special purpose vehicles, as I said before, like ferries and fishing craft. They are not commodity products, they are engineered for specification. So nextly, we'll talk about the presence of Turkey in the Nigerian market already. It's perhaps the most important slide in the deck because it answers the question every skeptic asks. Has this actually worked before? And the answer is yes. The Nigerian shipyard is already under active contract with Nigerian Navy on 4 separate programs. The NSRDU, Nigeria's flagship MEKO 360 frigate, is currently undergoing a major refit at one of the Asian shipyards in Turkey, and this is the Nigerian Navy's most significant surface combat. The ability of Turkey to match Nigeria's demand. This table shows Turkey's established vessel strength directly against Nigeria's documented needs. What you see is a clean overlap across 4 key segments. Firstly, we have offshore support vessels. Nigeria's offshore oil sector needs dozens of new OSVs and platform supply vessels. Turkish yards, particularly those in Tuzla, have a strong OSV and anchor handling tug design base and active construction programs. And then we have patrol and security craft. The Niger Delta security situation with piracy in the Gulf of Guinea and Nigeria's broader maritime security agenda creates a sustained demand for patrol vessels. And then we have ferries and coastal support. Nigeria's Lagos Lagoon system, inter-island routes, and coastal passenger transport all need modern ferries. And then we have tugboat and towboat port operations across major ports in Nigeria. Lagos, Apapa, and Port Harcourt require tug fleets, and Turkey is among the world leading exporters of specialized tugboats. Then we have the question of who to partner with in Nigeria. So here we just have some few major players in the Nigerian shipbuilding environment. We have Niger Dock FZE, which seems to be one of the best fit. This is West Africa's largest and most capable shipyard, located in the Snake Island Integrated Free Zone in Lagos State. Niger Dock delivered approximately 7,500 tons of fabricated topside modules on the Egina FPSO project. And nextly, we have the naval shipyard, which is also a very strong fit. The Navy owned based in Port Harcourt. This yard already builds the exact vessel types where Turkey excels: tugboats, ferries, barges, and houseboats. The government ownership is actually an advantage. It aligns regulatory support from the onset and creates a natural pipeline into the Navy's own procurement needs. And then we have a shipside dry dock, which is worth exploring, but the previous 2 are better options. It's backed by the Netsoil Group, one of Nigeria's largest EPC conglomerates. This facility has capital behind it. However, it is currently repair focused rather than build focused. So we move on to Nigeria's registered shipyards. So there are 3 tiers of Nigeria's registered shipyards, which are like 24 in total number. So tier 1, we have 4 full capacity yards with real infrastructure, which include Niger Dock, Naval Shipyard, and the Shipside Dry Dock, which you spoke of previously. These are the only shipyards currently capable of complex work. So we have tier 2, we have 6 specialists or mid-scale operators, including Stars Marine, West Atlantic, and so on. And then the 3rd tier, we have 10 of them, which are niche or emerging operators, most of them small and some with limited verifiable public information about their operational status. So now we move on to a SWOT analysis of the entire project. So we'll first take on the strengths. The relationship already has proof of concept with Derson's and Nigerian Navy's cooperation, which means that this is a system that can work and which we can explore. So the weaknesses is Nigerian yards currently cannot build the most complex vessels categories without significant technology transfer, which means the Turkish yards will have to invest a lot into it and try and move their own infrastructure into Nigeria's shipyards. Opportunities: the Samsung JV model on the Eniga FPSO gives a proven blueprint on how foreign shipbuilders can embed themselves in Nigeria through a joint venture structure. And then the threats: we have one of Netherlands' most prominent shipbuilders, which is Damen, is trying to get into this market, as well as China and several other competitors. Now we move on to the strategy and roadmap. The first phase, which is groundwork, which will take place between the first 6 months, commission a joint feasibility study with NIMASA and NCDMB, open formal conversations with Nigerdoc and Naval Shipyard Limited to establish like a basic framework for it and know the people you are going to be working with. The second phase will happen between the first 6 to 18 months, which will be signed the JV agreement and launch a single pilot project in one vessel category. A tugboat or patrol craft is the most logical starting point given existing relationships. And the third phase is happening between the 18 to 36 months time range, which will be to expand from one vessel type to 2 or 3 and grow the trained Nigerian workforce to at least 200 specialists. Achieve NCDMB local content certification for the joint venture. And then the fourth phase, which final phase, which will go on from 3 years onwards, establish Turkey as Nigeria's primary shipbuilding technology partner and license Turkish designs to other Nigerian shipyards. And then we move on to the potential outcomes of this collaboration. First of all, we have economic value retained in Nigeria. NIMASA and the Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy estimates that a functioning local shipbuilding sector could create up to 30,000 new maritime jobs. Each vessel built locally rather than imported keeps that spending on those jobs inside Nigeria. The second is a skilled workforce. Technology transfer builds permanent Nigerian capacity as a benchmark, and several new engineers and shipwrights will be developed from this project. And we have a fleet expansion of the Nigerian operators. So this means that both oil and gas sectors, government sector, security sector will have an improved capacity to carry out their needs, which will improve both Nigeria's and the Turkish investors' economic prowess. So also we have Turkey secures an African export base. This will help the Turkish investors to secure where they would have the base of their operations in Africa before they expand to other countries as well. And Nigeria's maritime security will be strengthened, as I said before. This will give better operations to Nigerian Navy and other maritime security forces to have a capable and strong enough fleet to conduct their activities. And then we have a pathway for innovation and green vessels. The Turkish yards are developing several LNG powered or hybrid vessels, and this will also be explored in the Nigerian market as well. So how can the Turkish companies enter into Nigeria? So we can either use a joint venture shipyard, the preferred route for companies with significant capital and a long-term commitment, co-invest in or modernize an existing shipyard in Nigeria. And then we also have technology transfer, a lower capital entry that builds goodwill and relationship before deeper investment, license Turkish vessels designs to Nigerian shipyards, and provide classification society support. So then we also have the CVFF-backed financing programs, structure vessel orders so that Nigerian shipping companies can draw on the CVFF to finance Turkish designed or Turkish built vessels. Specialized vessel export under a waiver for vessel categories that the Nigerian shipyards generally cannot produce yet. Export Turkish built vessels under approved cabotage waivers while the local build capacity is developed. So now we talk about the risks. So on the Nigerian side, we have regulatory overlap between NIMASA, NCDMB, and MPA can slow the dealing. The cabotage waiver abuse could also be a problem, but that would easily be taken care of. And currency risk and project financing in Nigeria require careful structuring and dollar-denominated contracts. And then on the Turkish side, shipbuilding exports competitiveness has been declining. The 2024 decline of 1.4% accelerated sharply in 2025, with Q1 exports over 27%. This makes the new market development urgent, but also means some yards may be under significant financial pressure. Now, what will be the next steps to take? So, as I said before, the joint feasibility between the NEMASA and NCDMB, and open formal talks with NigerDoc and also the Nigerian Navy, and start the pilot project as soon as possible and focus on one class before expanding to the others, and then scale into a multi-year joint venture with training and technology transfer commitments.